Morning, everyone. I'm here for another installment of Julie's PR Patter. I'm Julie Livingston of WantLeverage Communications, and I want to bring in my guest today. My guest is Leigh Woisard. Great to see you, Leigh. A senior public relations professional and public speaker whose passion is helping women and others to be intentional about their career path by communicating their value. She spent the last 18 years at Cox Communications, most recently as Senior Vice President of Public Affairs, where she oversaw the company's internal communications, media relations, product public relations, crisis communications, and corporate social responsibility. Wow, that's a lot. Leigh was named a 2019 Wonder Woman by Multi-Channel News, and she's also a Public Relations Society of America Silver Anvil winner, which is kind of the pinnacle of PR awards. She's currently the chairperson of the WICT, the WICT network, a professional development group dedicated to empowering women in media, entertainment, and technology. Welcome, Leigh. Great to see you. And I'm so excited today to talk about how to promote yourself, how to sell yourself without selling out, because I think this is a topic that so many people, especially women, I know I suffer from this myself, and I'm a publicist, and that is how to promote yourself the best way you can without feeling, overly promotional or insincere or that you're talking about someone else. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're talking to women about today to empower them to step up.
Well, thank you for having me, Julie. It's great to see you again. Well, I started thinking about this because as public relations professionals, and I've worked with a lot, managed a lot, as I know you have, one of the ironic things I found that public relations people, even though we promote our clients and our companies, we're very focused on promotion and publicity. One of the things that I noticed in working with a lot of PR people is that we often don't do what we do for our clients for ourselves and
It's
for
kind of
our
like it's kind of like the
career.
shoemaker's children, right?
That's right, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So that's what got me first thinking about this whole notion of self promotion without selling out. And then even beyond PR people, just executives coming up through the ranks and a lot of men, oftentimes I think self promotion just doesn't comport with how we see ourselves. Most of us want to see ourselves as we're that good foot soldier. We're in the office, sun up, sun down, we work, nose to the grindstone. And we want to believe, I think, that if we just work hard, we'll be recognized. And oftentimes, it's not always a meritocracy. And sometimes you need a little bit more. So that's kind of what got me thinking about it. Started to dig into the issue a little bit and found that women in particular really find self-promotion distasteful. And I think
Why do
there's
you
a lot of
think?
reasons.
Why do you think? Why are we like that?
Well, I think some research has said that because women tend to be very relationship focused, that sometimes we feel like self-promoting ourselves alienates others, and we don't want to do that. And I will say, beyond even women, I think a lot of us, and I think this is funny, but it's true, a lot of us have seen other people engage in self-promotion and they get it so wrong. They overdo it. They hog the spotlight. And we look at that and we say, I don't know what's going on there. Maybe that person's mom didn't give them enough attention. I don't want to do anything that looks like that. So we
Right.
steer clear. And I guess my question is, if we're not thinking intentionally about our own self promotion, are we being passed over for jobs? Are we feeling stuck in our career? Is it handicapping us?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work in this space as well. Over the course of my career, as in a volunteer leadership role, I've been involved in mentoring young women and trying to instill self confidence in them and to help them also climb the corporate ladder. As you know, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn and elevating executive presence and really helping uh, senior leaders, women, men, others, to really present themselves so that they're more visible, that they present themselves with credibility and really tell their story on their LinkedIn profile. So I guess we're kind of in similar lanes.
Hey, Julie, let me ask you, do you find this to be true? Because this is what I'm hearing, especially post-pandemic,
Yeah,
where people get to a certain point in their career, maybe it's mid-level, they've had some momentum, but then getting to that next step from maybe mid to that next level, oftentimes I hear people say, I'm starting to feel stuck. I'm starting to feel like people don't
absolutely.
really recognize what I bring to the table.
Yes, and I totally agree. And I think when I work with them on their LinkedIn, they're very often very reticent about promoting what they've done, especially those, I as a publicist, I try to pull out all of the things that will underscore their experience, their expertise, their knowledge, and especially their leadership skills. And I see in their faces that they often like, I don't want to, is that really so important? Yes, because all of these are like the building blocks to tell your personal brand story.
That's right.
And you do have to, you really should promote them properly. And it's not, and this is real stuff, right? These are your credentials. It's not like somebody is making them up. These things, you've really accomplished these things, so why not use them to tell your brand story?
True. That's so right. That's so right. And in my talk, what I try to do is make it actionable for people. So after listening to me, they can go away and think about these are some tools that I can actually apply. And I break down the presentation into kind of three main areas. We talk about, okay, if you really want to be like a PR person, because that's what I say, you have to be your own PR person, and really think about ensuring that as those jobs open up, as those opportunities, promotions open up, people have a clear perception of you and what you bring to the table. So I divide it into three parts. I talk about what's your one thing? What's the one thing that you do better or differently than anybody else doing a similar job? So in business speak, Julie, we often think about this as when we start working with a new client, what's their competitive differentiator?
Sure.
Same thing, applying it to your own career. So you identify your one thing, and I give you how you do that. Talk a little bit about that. And then we go into now that you know your one thing, how do we tell it and sell it so that other people see your one thing? And we're building something. We're thinking as those jobs open up or those opportunities to maybe work on a big account, do people know what you bring to the table, your one thing? So we talk about telling and selling it. And then we go into how do we get other people talking about your one thing? So again, Julie, in PR speak, PR people, we're not happy unless other people are talking about our
That's
clients,
right. That's right.
right? That's why we deal with the media, influencers. So those are kind of the three main parts. You identify your one thing. Then we move into you really being purposeful and intentional about telling and selling your one thing. And then we go into how do you get other people talking about your one thing?
How do you that is such a clear path, Lee, for people to follow. But how do you focus in on that one thing, your differentiator?
So what I tell people is don't overthink your one thing. When I talk about your one thing and I say, what's the one thing that makes you better than everybody else doing a similar job? After I give the speech, people come up to me with like panic in their eyes. Oh my gosh, I don't know my one thing. And it's kind of making the point because if you think about it, if you don't have a clear handle on what your one thing is, how is anybody else going to know your one thing? So first of all, don't overthink it. It's really I take creative license in saying what's the one thing that makes you better than everybody else, but it's really just kind of honing in on what do you want to be known for? Are you a visionary? You're that strategic person
Right.
that everybody else is doing all kinds of tactics, and you're always getting us back to what's the strategy. Are you a leader? You're the person that everybody wants to work for because you are able to get the best out of people and make them feel good about it. Are you a creative? You're the person that, you're pitching new business. You're the one always coming up with creative ideas. Are you the person with your eye on the trends? You see the consumer trends before they even become trends. Don't overthink it. It's more about identifying one thing and then being purposeful about promoting that one thing. And I will tell you, once you promote that one thing and people start to know you for it, you can move on to another thing. So if you think of
Right.
your personal brand, it's a ladder. And there's rungs in the ladder that all feed up to your brand. It's a lot. But by me saying focus on your one thing for a while, it's just a way to make it more actionable and digestible. Because to me, I don't know about you, Julie. Somebody says work on your personal brand. I mean, that's overwhelming. I think about that for maybe 2 days and
Yeah.
then I get back to doing my regular job.
Right. Absolutely. It is overwhelming. I often find that it is very helpful to speak to a coach, someone like you, about it, because otherwise you're kind of talking to yourself, and
That's right.
you can sabotage your own efforts to
That's
really
so true, Julie.
promote
Ask
yourself.
ask people who work with you. Ask a coach. You've worked with me for a while. What would you say like is the one thing that I really deliver to the team on a regular basis? And that helps you to hone in on what your one thing is. But we talk a lot about that in my talk, and as you can imagine, that gets a lot of dialogue going.
Leigh, you thrived in a very large organization. You were at Cox Communications as a senior vice president for 18 years. Um, What can you tell our audience about promoting yourself as a way of climbing the corporate ladder? What do you need in place internally? You talk about sponsors. Tell us a little bit about that so that people can start thinking about who they know that can help them get to that next level.
Right. So the way I talk about it is first of all you have to be committed to being very intentional about who you are, what you bring to the table and helping other people to see it. It's almost like if if you think about every decision you make at work is an opportunity to either promote your one thing or your personal brand, or it winds up diluting it. So if you start thinking about every decision at work is an opportunity for me to present myself, now let's start looking at things like um, what you share on LinkedIn. That's an opportunity for you to find that space, whatever your one thing is, and share content that helps to underscore that. Talking about sharing at work. So you've identified what you want to be known for. And then I don't know about you, but I read a lot, and maybe there's a periodical that you read, and it's a well researched article, and it
Yeah.
has something to do with your one thing. You now download that article, write it a brief note, and send it to your bosses. Hey, we were just talking about this. I thought you'd find it interesting because it deals with X, Y, and Z, which is somehow related to your one thing. So you're building up your presence and you're building your presence around your one thing. Think about teaching. So many people get intimidated by teaching, but now as you're looking to tell and sell your one thing, are there things like what you're doing, Julie, with this show? Are there lunch and learns? When's the last time you actually went to your boss and said, could I please be on the staff meeting agenda? I'd like to present on this topic. And as you do present on whatever that topic is, you relate it back to your one thing. So you're building your presence and you're building your presence around your one thing. Now, none of that is earth shattering, but you're being intentional. You're saying, what do I want to be known for? Because as those jobs open up, I want people to know what I bring to the table. And then you're being very intentional about telling and selling your one thing. And Julie, so many times, look at our to-do list. There's a ton of things on our to-do list. But when's the last time you were on your to-do list and
Right. That's right.
promoting yourself? So I start there, and then we can talk a little bit about sponsorships too. But I don't know if you have any reaction to that.
Yeah, I think that is so smart. I mean, one of the things I think about regularly when I'm working and creating LinkedIn content for my clients is there one thing the focus of every post I write? It's obviously what drives our LinkedIn content strategy, but you can't you have to stay with it all the way through. Sometimes people will get bored of their one thing or they want to, expand. Don't do it. Stay within, I call it your brand lanes. Stay within your brand lanes, continue to expand on what you are the expert in, so that you just reinforce it over and over and over.
Intentional, being intentional. And the other
Yes.
thing, Julie, this always gets a big reaction from the audience, but I talk about how you look. So my one thing is I wanted to be seen as an advisor to executives, a person that gives them really good advice, no matter whether they want to hear it or not. And so I always had to dress so that inspired confidence. That's what I want
Yep.
to be trusted. So I dress a certain way. This always gets a big laugh. I never wear jeans on Friday because everybody dresses down on a Friday, so I figure if I dress a little more up, you stand
Right,
out,
right,
and
right.
that helps to build your brand depending upon what your one thing is. Now, if you're a creative, you don't want to look like you just walked out of Talbot's from head to toe.
Right,
I want to see
exactly,
a little
exactly.
H&M and a little. So anyway, if this whole notion of being intentional from how you look, really
At every level of
that's how you
presentation
build it.
and communication. So tell us a little bit about sponsorship, and how do you identify those internal people who can help you and will support you as you rise up?
That's right. So one of the if you get back to your one thing you're telling and selling so other people say it. Now you want to get other people talking about your one thing. And a sponsor, in my kind of skinny down definition, a career sponsor is somebody who's saying really good things about you when you're not even in the room to hear them say it. They're saying good things about you and your one thing. And that gets back to networking, relationship building. So, what can we say that hasn't already been said on that topic? I think a lot of us don't do more relationship building, networking in order to build sponsorship relationships because sometimes I think it's just awkward. So, what's another way to look at it? Make it less awkward. And to me, what if you start networking and relationship building with people who share an interest or are already good at your one thing? So to me, say if you want to be known as that really good leader, you're what no matter the project,
Right.
you can lead a team. So now who in your company is also known as a really good leader? They're exceptional and they're influential. They could be a career sponsor for you. Now you have coffee with them, and rather than just saying, "Hey, you're influential. I want to be more influential.
You
Let's
can't
talk."
do that. No,
It's
no,
awkward.
no.
But
Don't
now,
do that.
what if you say, "Joe Executive, you're very influential in the company. I noticed what you did with X, Y, and Z project. And one of the things that I noticed is you were able to lead our employees through that change. It wasn't easy change, but you led them through it. You may not know this about me, but I've been focusing on leadership as well. And I was just wondering, any takeaways that you got from that project? What can you tell me that would help me? Now, look at what you've done with that conversation with Joe Executive. You've built your visibility and you're building your visibility around your one thing because you have a common interest in that.
Right.
So now
And you're
Joe Executive
right.
walks away and he's got a better impression of you.
And you're not walking into that conversation asking for something. I think that's what
Oh, so true.
differentiates networking and connecting. When you're really connecting with somebody on a deeper level, you have a give and take. You're building a rapport as opposed to walking in and saying, "What can you do for me?" I think
So
I
true.
I think, as you said, presenting yourself as a resource to that other person will really help you in the long run and help you build that rapport and that relationship, and perhaps get you a sponsor, right?
That's right.
Because
It's a
that
building.
person is going to see you for your expertise.
That's right. And Julie, you hit the nail on the head. If you are in line for a job and you're having coffee with somebody to ask that they vouch for you for that open position, you're almost too late if that's your first encounter. So you start building something, this rapport, as you said, that pays dividends later. Julie, have you ever heard this quote? I think this tells you everything you need to know about human nature and sponsorship. We're more apt to help people we know than people we don't know. We're more apt to help our acquaintances over people we know than we don't know. So I mean, that just tells you that you got to build they have to know you if they're going to be inclined to help you further down the road.
I couldn't agree more. And I have fumbled, as we all have. I have done the networking thing, the classic where I go in and ask for something. Doesn't work. I know that what works is building the relationship, building that rapport and showcasing your expertise and helping other people, being a resource for them.
And that's how it doesn't feel icky because you're using
Yeah.
your one thing, your gift, and that's what I go into a lot in the talk is you're actually using it, doing something nice just because, sharing your expertise. And that makes you feel like a good person and it's building your awareness around your one thing. I would just tell you if you are a woman, somebody that is just in that mid-level trying to start out. Be careful if you find yourself saying, I'm not going to think intentionally about promoting myself. I'm just going to let my work speak for itself. When I hear that, I think if we worked in a pure meritocracy, that might work, but you can't.
Too
Sometimes you
passive.
need something
Too
more.
passive.
Definitely.
Too
Too
passive.
passive.
You got to tell your story and promote your one thing. Leigh, I can't believe we're out of time. This
It was
was so
fun.
delightful. Everyone, if you want to get in touch with Leigh, her LinkedIn profile is on the screen. And book her for your next
Thank you.
presentation or speaking gig on personal branding and promoting your one thing so that you stand out and rise up. Thanks so much for joining us on Julie's PR Patter. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Julie.